Oh, yeah, baby. It's the ultimate Cleveland sports show. Jay Crawford is sick. We wish Jay the best. Hope he gets better. We've got an empty chair where Brad Sellers. There's Brad.
There he is.
Hey. Better late than never.
Hey. He came with his microphone and earpiece in.
Look at that. Look at that. Brad, there he is. And a lot to get to. The Guardians, guys, are the champions of the American League Central. A lot to get to on that. The voice of the Guardians, the great Tom Hamilton, is going to join us in about 30 minutes. We'll talk with John Costco of PFF. He's going to join us at around noon, so we'll look forward to all that. We'll get to the Browns later, and we'll talk about some weekend football as well. But, guys, Jason, let me start with you. The Guardians, lock it down. Great weekend. They sweep the Rangers. The White Sox and Twins fall apart. Not only, I said we'll start with you, but I'll get to you in 10 seconds. Not only did none of us expect the Guardians to win the division, we would have signed for just being in the hunt in September. Instead, they clinch with 10 days to go in the season.
And they took the souls of the Twins and the White Sox.
Completely.
Just gutted them within the last couple of weeks. You know, it was funny when I was filling in for Zach Meisel. He was on paternity leave, and I did a thing for The Athletic. Mid-season, who's your pick to win the division? I picked the White Sox. And I thought the division could keep the Guardians in the hunt. Not necessarily winning it, obviously, but just the division wasn't great. I thought it could keep them in the hunt of the division race and the wild card race. They completely exceeded my expectations, everybody else's expectations, and this is a team that can be a problem in the postseason.
It definitely can.
The way that they run the bases, the way that they attack the bases, the way that they pitch, the way that they defend. Listen, I know the Astros are the Astros and they're the behemoth, and I know the Yankees are the Yankees. I don't think there's any team in the American League that wants anything to do with the Guardians right now, the way that they're playing.
I completely agree with that, Jason. The Guardians are the first team to win their division as the youngest team in baseball since the 1986 Mets. Now,
we know how that wound up.
They won the World Series, one of the greatest World Series ever against the Red Sox.
Thanks,
how about
Bill
this
Buckner.
young team?
Man, before we get to that, man, I just want to show you my hat real quick. This G. Bush, a.k.a. the Mad Hatter. This is a barbershop limited edition. You know, right now it's Cavs, Cavs Day. They doing press media all of a sudden. You know, Cavs is relevant. I just had to show. This is the NBA Finals edition right there. See that? Yeah, y'all don't got this one, man. You know, as always, man. You know how we do. But back to these Indians. Guardians.
Yeah, let's go.
The Guardians, I'm going to tell you what. When you can get somewhere and you doing it with all young pieces and parts, that's so impressive, right? Because you didn't expect them to hold up down the backstretch. But not only did they not hold up, they put their foot on the gas. I was impressed with having all those division foes between the White Sox, between playing the Twins, all those games with a few weeks left to go. We foreshadowed it on the show. And for them to continuously come out, not only to hold the lead, they put some distance on these guys. And you could just see the level of confidence. And when he, you showed me a little clip there of I forget who was talking, but he said
Cal Quantrill.
Yeah, he basically says, man, Tito got the soldiers lined up. You know what I'm saying? When somebody is saying that means they completely bought into what we doing.
No doubt.
They completely bought in. And I tell you what, this is one of the most pivotal, best opportunities for the Guardians to just not go from a cool little story or third string in the city to being a possibility of they're a real player and getting new fans and new people into the organization and into the ballpark.
One thing I think that's worth noting, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the Guardians about this postseason, and we should.
Yeah.
But you can't tell the full story of the Guardians without telling the fact that they're the youngest team in baseball. And oh, by the way, they have one of the deepest farm systems still to come.
Yeah,
they do.
Some of their best players aren't here yet. Let me say it again. Some of their best players aren't here yet, and they just won the division as the youngest team in baseball.
It's amazing.
So maybe the Dodgers are the only team you could say is better positioned in terms of roster and farm system. And obviously the Dodgers have more flexibility to spend as well.
Go back.
The Guardians are positioned as well as anybody in baseball
You
right
have to
now.
go back and think about this, Jason, that, I remember the All-Star break before the trade deadline. Mm-hmm. We were, people in this town were complaining that the Guardians didn't make a move for some experienced talent. And I think we said on our own panel that sometimes you have to realize that people who see people every day may know a little bit more than you know. And I knew they had a feeling about this. Now you think about when Lindor got traded out of town, you got Rosario and Jimenez back, right? They're paying well more dividends here I don't think we got
especially
burned at all.
per dollar spent.
I'm glad you mentioned that trade. Look at that trade. Frankie had 1 year left on his deal.
Yeah.
And look what they got. Jimenez and Ahmad Rosario. Go look
Plus
at what,
2 minor leaguers, too.
Go look at what Baltimore got for Manny Machado.
Nothing.
When they traded him with a half a season to go. Kind of really at the same time.
Yeah.
You're only talking about postseason. They had 1 postseason.
Right.
And Baltimore got nothing for Machado. The Guardians just hit a home run on
Well,
that
I think
trade.
the other thing that you have to consider is this: that not only did you get players back, you got youth, you got lower payroll, you got longevity in a market like Cleveland, right? Yeah. So Cleveland has to have ramp up time. In order, any franchise has that ramp up time to be able to get to a payroll point, because you're going to read you're typically going to meet a crossroads at this city, and this city's like of this size, right? Then you have to make a decision. We've got youth. You think about this. We're going into there was no way that anybody thought the Guardians were going to win the division.
Nobody thought. And if you think about this team, and by the way, I should bad job out of me, credit to Mandy Belda's excellent work for MLB.com covering the Guardians. She had that. I read that stat about them being the first youngest team to win the division since the Red Sox in her column. I read it this morning. So shout out to her on that. But think about this, guys. I mean, first of all, before the season, I think a lot of people would have bet the Guardians were more likely to finish 5th than 1st in this division. Certainly,
I think that's a reach. But
maybe that's a reach. But certainly, most people had them in 3rd place in this division, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, the Tigers and Royals didn't come along like some thought they might. If you look at it, going into the season, they had holes all over the lineup. Right now, it feels they still have some holes, but not nearly as many as coming into the season.
No.
You would have thought, if their offense was going to be good, that Franmil Reyes would have had a monster season. Coming into the season, you thought he was your 2nd best hitter. He got cut.
Yep.
Got cut.
Yep.
Right? Like, Oscar Gonzalez was a guy, they left off the 40-man roster at one point. He could have been claimed in the Rule 5 draft.
Yep.
Right? Stephen
Would
Kwan,
have been claimed if there was one.
Right, if there was Rule 5 draft.
Yeah.
Stephen Kwan is a guy who was like a nice prospect, but like he's going to finish 2nd Rookie of the Year. And a lot of seasons he would have won Rookie of the Year. I know a lot of fans here are mad, think he should win. Julio Rodriguez is the Rookie of the Year.
He's a transcendent talent.
Julio
Rodriguez.
Stop
is.
it. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
He's the Rookie of the Year. But I think Kwan's going to finish 2.
Probably.
Or maybe Adley Rush. He's up there.
You get concerned that people are not going to pay attention because it's Cleveland and whatever else. So
but he's in the mix,
worthy
right?
of being
Like
2.
he doesn't hit a lot of home runs. That's why he doesn't get recognized as much. You can go on and on, like Tristan McKenzie putting it all together and staying healthy.
Yep.
The bullpen, we knew it had potential, but not like this. I mean, the bullpen's been just absolutely phenomenal, and now they can rest them well during the stretch because, in particular, Clase and Karinchak need some rest. I mean, there's a lot to like both now and for the next bunch of years.
Do you guys think that because you have to watch baseball a little bit differently, that's the reason why it may not be a lot of people don't understand how good this team is, right? Because you got to watch baseball in a way where, 1 or 2 games or even a whole series doesn't really mean that much in the scheme of the long process. It's like you kind of mentioned it when you talked about what you thought the team was going to be, and Franmil Reyes not even on the team. It's such a long process.
Right.
It's almost like you start school in 1st grade, and by the time you're done, you're in 4th grade. Mm-hmm. It's like that's how much has transpired, and sometimes people just don't get like, hey, this team is actually very good.
Well, think about it this way, right? Like, when you have a great player, let's say LeBron, how many bad games does LeBron have in a season? 5? Maybe. If that many? I mean, like, he doesn't have a lot of bad games. Nick Chubb, how many bad games does Nick Chubb have in a season? 2? Maybe? And probably it's not even his fault that the defense was so great, their offensive line sucked that day, whatever it is. The greatest players in baseball that are hitters will have 50 days where they don't do much. It's just the nature of the game. So, like, if you're not watching all the time, and most people are not watching 162 baseball games, then you don't, and especially this team, because baseball, unlike basketball and football, has so many stats that some people are confused, like, I see Stephen Kwan, he doesn't have a lot of home runs, he doesn't have a lot of RBIs. So if I'm a casual observer, I might think, well, I guess this guy's not that good. But there's other parts of the game that he's excellent at.
He could win a Gold Glove.
Absolutely.
As a rookie in left field.
Absolutely. Look at their defense in the outfield, especially with Will Brennan in right, is top notch.
I want to ask Cammie about that. We have Tom Hamilton on. I think there's a spot for Will Brennan on this postseason roster.
100%.
I think that's why they brought him up now to figure that out.
100%. Jay. I'm starting him against righties in right field. I'm doing that, and I'm DHing Gonzalez against righties.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
Yeah.
That's just crazy at the fact that, and I'll give him credit for this. I've always said I'm more of a youth guy. If it ain't much of a difference between a young dude and an old guy, I'm taking the young dude, even if he don't got no experience, because I can look at your upside and get you some experience. And that old dude, sure, he has a level of experience. Sure, he's been there before. But you get in a position where you're the Guardians, and like you said, they best players is in minor leagues. That's so hard to fathom at the way, especially the way the middle infielders are playing. Like, so you telling me we got better guys than this in the farm system? You start to think about what it could be.
Well, so you talk about this, G. You know, when you get to playoffs, I don't care what sport you're in, there's a different mentality. First, the organization has to understand what their capabilities are. Am I capable? How far am I capable of going, right? Or am I setting this up for next year? You know, because sometimes you just play with house money and go as far as you can go. Right. So the Guardians have a chance. Baseball is different than basketball. It's different than football. They have a chance here, right? And so I will tell you that there's a value on an experienced player when you get to a playoff, right? Because they have been there, have seen some things. The other people are learning on the fly.
You think they have a legitimate chance?
Well, here, first of all, I don't think Gonzalez, a guy who has 2 years of 30 straight homers in the minor league, I don't think that's a guy that I'm sitting down and just DHing, right? I got young guys. I'm going to use these dudes, right? Mm-hmm. But I know there's a place for some older people here to school these young fellas up out of here, right? Because you're in a place here, G, where you don't know where this team is going. There's nowhere in the world we thought this team was going to be here. So I can't sit there and say that, well, you're going to be out in the first round.
It's one of those, they don't know what they don't know.
No, they don't.
And so
it's dangerous.
And I wonder if it gets brought up like one of these streaks. Like the Indians/Guardians have lost 8 straight playoff games.
Yep.
And they've lost 11 of 13 since they were up 3-1 in the World Series. Remember, the following year, took the first 2 from the Yankees. I was just talking about it this morning. Remember that game 2? They won, I think it was 7-6 in 13 innings here in Cleveland. And then they got swept by the Yankees, and the next 2 years they got knocked out. Or 2 of the next 3 years, whatever it was. And so they've lost 8 straight playoff games. I think it'll be big. First of all, it's a young team. Most of these guys haven't been here for any of those outside of
I don't think any of them have.
Well,
Bieber was even on the, I guess Jose. Bieber wasn't even on the roster when they got swept by Houston. He didn't pitch, right? He was hurt or he was in the bullpen. I can't remember now. He didn't pitch. No, I think Jose's the only one probably on this team that
maybe Brian Shaw was he? No, he had gone. He had left, right? Was he gone?
No, Bieber and Jose were on the roster.
Yeah, but Bieber didn't pitch against Houston.
But again, most of these guys are new. I don't know that their 8 straight losses in the playoffs really are a big factor. I mean, it's huge that the whole series in this first round with this new format is at home. Yeah. So it's a 3-game. It's a best of 3. Right now they play the Mariners, but that's far from decided because the Rays are only a half game ahead of the Mariners.
And we were talking for the show. The Mariners are wreck right now. Julio Rodriguez is on the DL with back problems. Yeah. Who knows if he can come back or not? If that changes their team completely.
And Suarez, who's been a good hitter for them too, is also hurt. Yeah. The Guardians have no injuries. No, they have 2 guys on the injured list right now. Anthony Gose, who cares, and Plesac, who's coming off the injured list. Yeah. Here's the wild card standing. Can you guys put that back on? So Toronto, I've said that I'd like the Guardians to play Toronto because even though Toronto's got the best lineup, I don't think their pitching is very good. The Mariners do have excellent pitching. Yeah. I would actually argue 1 through 4 in their rotation, they might be slightly better than the Guardians. If you go 1 through 4. Well, but you know what? I should nix that because you won't go 4 in this round. You're only using 3. 1 through 3, it's neck and neck. It's neck and neck. Their pitching is really good. Yeah. The Guardians have a better lineup than the Mariners, especially with no Rodriguez and Suarez. If those guys are out, their lineup is below average, I'd say. Yes. Tampa's lineup is also not great. They also have the good pitching. Toronto, opposite. Great lineup, mediocre pitching. Their bullpen I don't like at all outside of their closer. Romano has been good. But even the Orioles, 4 games out, could get into the mix there. But none of those teams are playing great baseball right now. Doesn't mean they can't be when the playoffs start in 2 weeks, but none of them are playing great.
But that's the key. Baseball more than anything is about getting hot. If you get into the playoffs, we know if you look at basketball, the Cavs were young. They had a nice little nucleus. There was a nice little story. They couldn't get in the playing game because people started playing defense and was like, okay, we really want to play. In baseball, that's different. Like you can't. If somebody jumps on you quick and they put 3 runs up in the first few innings, you automatically is tight in the first because it's a best of 3. You tight. Yeah. You're like, oh, well, we lost this one. We got to win 2 straight.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go back to what I was saying earlier. So you go into the playoffs, it's totally different. Now here, you got a bunch of young kids. You saw after the clinch, right? You got a bunch of young dudes running around here. They're happy, all excited, right? Which they should be, because they don't even know that they shouldn't be here, right? So when you sit here, now we go into the playoff scenario, and Jason will know what I'm talking about. Sometimes when you walk into the playoff forum, guess what? It's Broadway, baby, bright lights and showtime here. And somebody can get shell-shocked here. And you're like, oh, and all it takes me is 1 or 2 games to shell-shock you, and I can get on by you. That's why you have to have people of calming influence in there to keep people on a level playing
field. You can't add veterans now.
But I'm saying in the mix of the entire club, right? Somebody's got to be guiding this ship in.
That's Terry. Yeah. Right. That's Terry Francona on this team.
And Jose, right? Jose's been there, done that. That's up to Tito and Jose. I don't think these guys are going to get tight. Now, maybe if they're losing the first game, I don't know. You never know. I think it
goes back to what I said. They don't know what they don't know.
100%. And by the way,
that makes them extremely dangerous.
When we get to the offseason, like this pass that the ownership is getting now because the team is playing great, that goes away in the offseason. Just because the team is really good, because of the Guardians have a great front office and a great manager, doesn't give the owner, let's not give him a pass so he says, you know what, we should just keep the payroll right where it is. We don't want that. We do want them to spend some money. But the front office and the manager is the best combo in all of baseball. I don't think there's any doubt about it. If you look at GM or front office, you put Antonetti and Chernoff together, GM manager combo, I wouldn't trade it for anyone in the league.
I absolutely believe Chris Antonetti and Mike Chernoff got Al Avila and Dayton Moore fired. The Tigers and
100%.
The Tigers and the Royals fired their GMs this year.
Yes.
And I have no doubt, and John Sherman, the owner of the Royals, came from here.
Yeah.
Looked at those guys and said, why can't you do that?
100%.
Why can't you do what Cleveland is doing? Cleveland is doing it with less than we are. We're a small market team. We have more the Kansas City and Detroit both have deeper pockets than Cleveland. How come you guys can't figure out what they've done? I mean, how many years?
They're not even close.
No, not even close. And I absolutely believe that the Guardians got those guys fired.
The difference here,
I agree.
You can tell the difference here is organization, how this is built. You have guys on the ground level that know what they're doing. They know talent. They know how to put things together. The management level from the operation of this team, they understand exactly what to do. And I will just contradict you on the other side of this. You have to. It's not about being able to spend the money, right? It's being able to be not only efficient, but survive here in a market here that's only going to bear so much. You look about halfway through the season, not halfway through, more than 3/4 of this season, we were still begging for people to go down and watch the Guardians, right? Those dollars add up. This is not New York. This is not LA. This is not Chicago.
We all know that, Brad, but you've got to spend more than they're spending.
Here,
I don't care what the attendance is.
I'm not saying that's here. You can spend, but you have to spend differently. I can't spend like I can spend in a bigger market. I cannot do that, right?
I know, but nobody's asking them to do that.
No, but I'm saying when you're running an organization, I'm talking to here. I run an organization, right? I know exactly how it runs, right? And it's contrary to what public belief, there's limited dollars here, and you have to be able to spread those dollars around so that the machine goes forward. And some years it's a little more here, some years it's a little less here, but it's not.
Your town's not a billionaire, though.
No, but it's a harder science. When you're not in the bigger market.
I look at it like this. I've always said this. If you're going to be in the game, if you're an owner, you got to understand what the rules of engagement are when you get into the game. And if you are saying, I want to go into this, because it's a business, they could have went into any other business, restaurants, land, they could have did a lot of the things, but they wanted to get into professional sports. And the nature of professional sports is you got to understand that to be competitive, you might have to go a little more into your pockets than you're willing
That's right,
to
this
do.
business.
And you got to, maybe your profit margin, you might want 20%.
And we know they can do it because they did it for a number of years. But I don't want to dwell on that right now.
I just want to make one quick point as we're talking about money.
Yeah.
Zach Meisel wrote for us last week, I think. They offered Carlos Rodon $60 million over 3 years, which shocked me because Rodon's had a ton of arm injuries. Of all the guys to invest in, I was shocked that they picked that guy.
Yeah.
But they offered him $60 million over 3 years. So they tried to spend last year.
Yeah.
They turn around and put that money back into Jose. As we talk about spending money, if they decide Stephen Kwan is for real and they sign him to a 6-year extension because he's got 5 years left, 5 years of control left, if you sign him to a 6 or 7 year deal, I'm okay with that. If you decide Oscar Gonzalez is the real deal, he's got 5 years of control.
Jimenez, they should be signed right.
Jimenez.
Be a little harder.
Sure. But now's the time.
Now's the time.
If
They should lock it. And they did that in the past. They did it with Brantley. They did it with Kipnis back in the day.
It's getting harder, though.
Yes.
Agents are now advising guys not to sign those deals. It's harder now than ever. You have to basically get them in year one.
Yeah.
Because it's already, we've had the conversation about Bieber. It's too late. It's too late with Shane. He's down to 2 years of control.
I would try
He's
to
not
sign
gonna
Rosario. Honestly, well, we'll get to that this offseason. But I'll tell you what has really taken the Guardians now to this next level is that for years they've been a great management, great manager, great at developing pitching. Their one flaw until recently had been their ability to draft and develop hitters.
Yeah.
They had a lot of their high draft picks at offensive players had not panned out, right? Two most notably, who still haven't, Bradley Zimmer and Clint Frazier, who are barely in the major leagues, right?
Right.
And now, if you look at what they've done, now you talk about some of their best prospects still in the minors. That's true. We don't know for sure they're going to pan out in the majors.
Right.
Guys like, well, Espino's a pitcher, but there's still a lot of great talent
Gabriel
offensively.
Arias, Brian Rocchio.
The list goes on and on.
You got a ton of shortstops, some outfield guys.
Exactly. But even at the big
Valera.
league level, now guys got to prove it for more than 1 year. But Jimenez and Rosario have been in the big leagues, and they obviously were developed by the Mets. But the Guardians have gotten the best out of them. Right? Quan had a magnificent rookie year. Gonzalez, a magnificent rookie year. On and on and on. A lot of these guys have really contributed now. And Bo Naylor's another one that we're hoping to see.
Yep.
He should be their starting catcher next year.
Probably will be. They've really moved. I mean, 16 rookies made their debuts this year. They've really moved away from manipulating contract clocks and all that and starting, like, they can't worry about that right now. They have to see who can play and who can't. There's something else I was going to say. It fell out of my head. Keep talking.
Bo Naylor, catcher. You know, they'll
I know what I was going to say.
Yeah.
When you were talking about hitting and everything.
Yeah.
They don't want to talk a lot about this. They don't want to reveal their secrets, obviously.
Yeah.
But if you look at the way, starting around the Bieber draft, they changed the way that they look at pitching. If they want command guys, and they feel like they can teach velocity. Where hitting, they feel if they can get contact guys, they can teach power. And Gonzalez is a good example of that. Oscar Gonzalez is a good example of that. When you see the way that they sort of redid his swing this year, and they've sort of taken out some of those holes. He still has massive power. It'll come in the future. I guess Quan's a better example. This contact guys. Owen Miller came in trade, but a contact guy.
Yeah.
So they've really, within the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, they've sort of revamped the way that they scout these guys, both in trades and in the draft, where they don't necessarily want big power guys. They want guys who can put the bat on the ball, and they can teach them the rest. They can develop the rest.
You know, sometimes when you're in a smaller market, and I hate to say that, you have to do things differently, right? And if you think about all three teams, it'll be a little.
I almost wrote a column on this.
It'll be a little different than when Watson comes back. But all three of these teams have the arrow pointing way up.
Yeah.
And yet they do it differently. The Guardians
all three of them play like they're in the 80s.
Yes. The Guardians, where everybody's hitting for power, they're getting on base. The Browns, everybody's throwing the ball, they're running the ball.
Yep.
The Cavs, everybody's shooting threes, they're going with old school front
three
line,
7-footers.
right?
Now this year they'll get away from that, I think, with the
Right.
Mitchell trade. But
the Browns and Cavs will come a little more modern, but the Guardians aren't.
No.
They're not.
And this may be,
and it's working.
I'm curious to see next year when they abolish the shift.
Yeah.
And how this they've been messing with the ball this year. It's pretty blatantly obvious.
Yeah.
They've been messing with the ball with humidors and everything else.
Yeah.
And the Guardians just seem like they're ahead of everybody else in this. And I'm wondering if other teams now will try and shift their philosophy and stop playing for 3-run homers and go back to the way Cleveland plays.
And I think the reason it's effective, and I'm hopeful the reason it'll be effective. I know you said that you think the Guardians are going to be, have a team that can compete in the playoffs, and I do too, is because we're now in an era, guys, where there's so much velocity from the pitchers. Like, it used to be if a guy threw 98, it was like, oh my God, the guy threw 100. Oh my God. Now there's like a few guys on every team that throw that hard. Some teams have 7, 8 guys that throw in the high 90s. And with all that velocity, well, sometimes, especially facing the best pitchers in the playoffs, all those sluggers, they strike out a lot. The Guardians don't have a lot of guys that strike out. And if you put the ball in play and force the issue,
you're putting pressure on
that's
defenses
right.
constantly.
Yes.
Pitching staffs and defenses are under constant pressure when they play Cleveland.
So now that they're there, what's the ceiling in your mind? They're red hot. They've played well down the backstretch.
Yeah.
What is the ceiling now in the playoffs?
I have no expectations for this team. They're playing with house money. And it's sort of like LeBron's last year on that final year. I said, listen, I have no predictions. They could go out in the first round. They could go to the finals. Nothing would surprise me.
Right.
And they almost went out in the first round, and they did go to the finals. I kind of feel the same way about the Guardians. They may get there and get swallowed up in the moment and lose in the first round. They can go to the World Series. Neither one, I know it's not much of a prediction, but nothing that this team accomplishes or doesn't accomplish would surprise me at this point.
I agree. I think they could win 0 playoff games. I think they could win it all. I really do.
It's so strange because they're so young.
Yes.
And we don't know what they can do in this moment.
Jason, you're so correct. Were you playing with house money? They have no
pressure.
I don't know what's going on. Right?
Some teams get tight in the moment. Some teams are extremely loose.
We will know when the lights come on.
That's right.
Right? When the lights come on, we will know.
I think it's very clear that in the American League, the Astros are the class.
Yes.
They're head and shoulders above everybody else. I think the Guardians are neck and neck with every other team in the American League. I believe that. I know the Yankees have the big payroll and they're big, powerful Yankees. And Judge, I don't want anything to do with him individually. But the Guardians have a better rotation than the Yankees. They have a million times better bullpen than the Yankees. And I don't know that their lineups really, I mean, that's close. Yeah, Judge is great, but so is Jose Ramirez. And the Guardians defensively are better. Yankees are solid defensively, but not as good as the Guardians. So, and you got to get past somebody else first. But I like their chances.
It really depends on, does Houston go 3 games in the first round? Who lines up? How do you line up your pitching in the second round?
Well, Houston's got 5 good starters. Really,
yeah, I know.
So that makes it tricky.
But if you can delay seeing Verlander, I'm all for that.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
I don't understand how he's still that good.
It's amazing.
It really is.
He was in Detroit.
He may be having the best year of his career. Yeah. He might win a Cy Young at 40. All right, or whatever he is. All right, guys, let's send it over to Anthony. He is producing today. Mike is a slacker, didn't want to work.
Everybody.
So we'll
Mike's taking
Anthony.
a day off, sitting next to me today.
Well, Mike shows up late today. I don't know what's happening. I'm kidding.
We don't have to talk about it. He may have been out partying with the Guardians last night.
Oh, was he?
And, you know, those guys are going hard. We all saw the videos. I'll be honest. The hangovers might be bad. When you have a hangover, though, your stomach, you wake up, it's empty, you're hungry. What do you want to go grab? A Built Bar. 120 calories. Don't laugh. You're going to make me laugh.
That's
120 calories.
Yeah.
They're the best cure for the hangover. You can go to BuiltBar.com, use promo code LOCKEDON15, and get 15% off your code. And now,
there you go.
We're going to do Ask the Internet, too.
Okay, what are they saying here?
So we went out, and we asked them, once this stinger's done.
All right.
You drunk? What do you want to eat? Taco Bell?
Definitely.
Sheets?
Definitely.
Whenever we ask the Internet, they're brought to you by PCC.
Get it done.
Looking for a job with a career advancement and great benefits? PCC Airfoils is a leading manufacturer in Northeast Ohio. And all locations of PCC Airfoils located in Eastlake, Menor, Wickliffe, and Minerva are hiring for all positions starting at $18 and up. Plus, get a full benefit package, paid time off, and signing bonus. Apply online at precast.com/careers to learn more.
Never go against the PCC. Never. Never go against it.
He's doing regular movie lines now.
All right, what does the Internet say?
All right,
Anthony?
so we can go ahead and take tag board here, Steve. And today we wanted to ask, how are we feeling about the Guardians winning the Central? So we can go to our first one here, Mike. We asked for gifts from Jim.
Let's go, Mike.
Partying it up.
That's good. I like that.
Partying it up. Remember to grab your Built Bar after you're done chugging that can.
Absolutely. You're going to feel better.
Got a Pepsi?
Going unstoppable. Can't get through. Thanks, Ed.
Juggernaut.
Next one, Mike. The classic, Cleveland Rocks.
I mean, you got to always have Drew Carey.
Absolutely. I think we tweeted this out from the UCSS account, too.
Yeah.
Let's take the last one here, Mike. Going
Kermit?
crazy. Oh, do we have one more?
Is there any Kermit connection directly to Cleveland? Anything?
I don't know if there's any Kermit connection.
My kind of team, Charlie. That's
Love
a good
that
one.
movie.
My
from
kind of
Cleveland
team,
Sports Homer.
Charlie.
My kind of team, Charlie.
What happened to that guy? Was he ever in a movie besides Major League? That guy said such a great voice.
See, the people mad about that, right? They mad about you got Major League. It's a classic movie. They got the jerseys on that say Indians. They be mad. There's some people right now just punishing themselves, going rewinding that on VHS.
Yeah.
I told you they should have never changed.
I wonder if all the people said, all those losers who said they're never watching again because they're the Guardians, are they back?
I think some of them are back and some of them still aren't.
All right, let's go to Tom Hamilton, the amazing voice of the Cleveland Guardians. There he is. Tom,
Yes,
were you partying last night? Were you partying with the team last night? What, were you up all night? Were you drinking? What's going on?
No, I'm too old for that. And, but it was fun to go down in the clubhouse and and see those guys. I mean, at my age now, they're the same age as my kids. So you feel like you're watching your kids, so to speak, enjoy. And those are the guys that should enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's fun to just go down there, congratulate people, stay off on the side because they're the guys that played. They're the guys that won this thing. We were the lucky ones that were able to go along for the ride and then watch it day by day. But they had a good time. Let me put it this way.
Yeah.
It's very fortuitous that today was a scheduled off day.
It would have been an off day whether they were scheduled or not.
Right. So we heard. Hey, Tom, we mentioned a great stat before that I saw in Mandy Bell's article that the Guardians are the youngest team in baseball. That we knew, but they're the first team that was the youngest team in baseball to clinch to win a division since the '86 Mets. I mean, and that team obviously was great. What a remark! I mean, nobody had the Guardians winning the division this year. Nobody. It's crazy.
No, and I think that includes everybody within the organization.
Sure.
I mean, you go to spring training and everyone's hopeful. I mean, that's the beauty of spring training is that everyone feels good about their chances. But you also knew what was in store in that, you had to find out. Tito had always said, and he said it in spring training, look, you have to find out about young players. Sometimes the answer is no, but the worst thing you could do is go through a season and not get questions answered and be in the same boat next year. And so, this roster, guys, looks a whole lot different than it did when we opened up the season in Kansas City. Oscar Mercado is gone and Bradley Zimmer and Bobby Bradley and Yu Chang. And there have been others, but the young kids really pushed the envelope. I think what's remarkable is, we've talked about the age, 16 players making their major league debut. Mm-hmm. Now, that normally is a recipe for a ball club that's going to be 20 games under 500. Yep. I think the amazing part of the 16 making their debut is how many made an immediate impact, even guys that aren't here right now. Remember when Nolan Jones came up in Kansas City and, helped that ball club win a couple of games right away for the way that he was playing. And, you can kind of go on down the list. Guys came up here and were ready to play right away. I think a lot of credit not only goes obviously to the front office and scouting and player development, but the job manager, Andy Tracy, did in Columbus. Because when these kids came up here, and I'm sure Brad can relate to this even better than any of us. When you're a rookie, first off, you're to be seen and not heard. Absolutely. And these kids knew how to come into a clubhouse or into a locker room and pay their respects, so to speak. But the biggest thing they did is they proved to the veterans they weren't concerned about their stats. The only way you get to the major leagues is you put up numbers.
That's right.
But when you get to the major leagues, it's about winning games. And those guys proved to the veterans from day one, they would do whatever it would take to win a game, even if they were 0 for 4, but moved a runner up or made a great play defensively or had a 10-pitch at bat that enabled other guys to see what that pitcher had. Whatever they did to help the ball club rather than help themselves, that's how they were ingratiated so quickly into this ball club. And Chris Valleca had a great point earlier this summer when visiting with him that he calls it the power of the high five. And I know it sounds so simplistic and it almost sounds like something you would tell your high school kids if you were a coach. But he said they talked about the power of the high five, that when you came to the dugout, you were getting a high five for something you did to help the ball club. Again, you might have made an out, but you had a long at bat or you moved a runner or whatever. And just those little things, it really seemed to just kind of snowball. Everybody bought in. And that's a credit, obviously, to Tito and the coaching staff, but to Andy Tracy and how he prepared those kids in Columbus and then the kids themselves, because we've all been around young people, and I include myself in that. When I was young, we think we know it all, and that's how you get in trouble when you get brought up to a major league club. And man, these kids just They got it from day one. They really got it.